morning, everyone. Hi, Rama. Um, can you introduce yourself? Are you already an ACCA student, or you're just like planning to start ACCA?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am, I had started, but recently I completed my 12th class and now
Okay.
I started. I'm in chapter 6 of F1.
Okay. All right. So you have not given any papers of ACCA yet, right?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so I'll just give a brief introduction about myself and then we'll start with the session. So I'm ACCA Disha Chauhan, a proud FinTrammer, and I've been teaching few subjects of ACCA from almost like 2 years now. I also have a experience with working with various big fours. So we will start off with the today's demo session on business and technology. So I'll be sharing my screen. So kindly let me know once you can, see that. So my screen is visible to you, Rama?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So we'll firstly start off by, talking about what exactly is business and technology. So this subject basically is going to be teaching the students, the candidates, that exactly how any business operate. What are the certain things that someone has to keep in mind when you're doing business, from the viewpoint, from ethical viewpoint, and otherwise the business viewpoint. It will show what is the critical role of finance professionals who play this when they're trying to achieve this. So basically, since you have already given 12th, and I assume you would have done commerce, so
Ma'am.
you would have studied business studies, right, in your 11th
Yes,
and
ma'am.
12th commerce. Yeah, so business and technology is pretty similar to that. Many concepts of your business studies and your economics is something that are there in this subject. So it's a mixture of, you could say, both your business studies and economics, and of course there will be some other topics as well here, related to technology and few other things which would be new, but mostly it's something, the knowledge is building upon basically on what you studied back in your 11th and 12th commerce, whether it was in your business studies exams or your economics exam. So that is something more or less. You'll be understanding business here in the context of what will be its environment, the legal regulatory framework, influences on aspects like governance, employment, all of that. And this is something, whatever you study in BT, this is something which, then when you reach your professional level and you are giving, let's say, your SBL exam, which is a strategic business leader, the concepts that is studied here at this level is something that you would also see there, of course, in a more detailed manner. So now let's look at the syllabus areas. So these are the syllabus areas for the exam business and technology. So we are going to be going through each one of them in detail. So let me know if you can see the other screen which I have just shared now. Is this screen visible? Business and technology syllabus.
Yes, ma'am. Syllabus areas.
Yeah. So here there is, the first one is the business organization and organization structure. So in this one, we will be, studying about what exactly is a business organization, what is a stakeholder, who is a stakeholder, what are the types of stakeholders, what are the different types of organization structures that are there, what exactly is marketing. Now marketing is something we have studied previously in our 11th 12th also, right? We have studied 4 P's of marketing and all of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Then we'll be studying organization culture, IT, information technology and information system, since of course this is a business and technology paper, so there will be a little bit of technology aspects also here. Then there is the external environment and ethics, wherein many things will be covered, from your political factors, legal factors, economic factors. Again, something which previously has been seen in the economic subject. We have studied microeconomics, macroeconomics, all that we have studied, what was demand, supply. So all those concepts are again being studied here. And of course, few other topics like ethics is something which was not really done then, but ethics is now ACCA, since it's a professional qualifications, ethics becomes a important focus there. Then there is governance and social responsibility, where of course we are taught about what exactly is corporate governance, what is social responsibility, and what businesses have to do to be socially responsible. Then the part D of the syllabus area is your accounting and reporting systems and your internal financial control. So here we will be touching upon what exactly is the role of accounting. Then we will study about control, security and audit, wherein we'll be briefly just touching about exactly what is audit, because of course ACC has a separate subject for audit. So here just briefly we'll be understanding what exactly is audit, how it is done, what are the controls that a company has to take, and all of that. Then how and what are the things with regards to identifying and preventing of fraud. And finally, there's another syllabus area, ENF 2 left. So E is more on management and leadership. And leadership management, again, business studies previously covered, little bit touched upon that. There will be some new theories that you will be learning here. Leadership management, what exactly is supervision, recruitment and selection, individual groups and motivation, how what are the differences when you're working as an individual or if you're working in a group, what exactly are the motivational theories, how can your managers motivate an employee. So all that's something we will be covering here. Then training and development, how training is little different from development, what are the differences, what are the different features of training, what are the features of development, what is on-site training, off-site training. So all of this is something that will be covered here. Then personal effectiveness and communication is the final syllabus area, wherein we are learning about performance appraisal. That of course every employee who's working in an organization, you have to see how that person has performed. Based on that only you give them their bonuses, or maybe the next year salary is decided. And finally, it's personal effectiveness and communication, wherein you will be seeing about time management, how communication is done within an organization, and all things related to that. So these are of course all the syllabus areas which are going to be covered if you enroll with FinTram. And I'm the faculty who will be going through each of the sessions covering all of these. All right, then moving on to the exam structure. So the exam is divided into two sections, section A and section B. And it is for 2 hours. It is an on-demand exam. That means whenever you want to appear for the exam, you can decide the date. The ACCA will not publish a date that, okay, on this date the exam is there. These are on-demand exams. So it's up to the candidate to decide when they want to appear for the exam, and they can block that date and simply give the exam. So there are two sections. First section is of course your objective questions, the MCQs that you would have, wherein there will be options and you have to decide which is the right answer. So there will be 30 such questions which will be of 2 marks, and 16 MCQs which will be of 1 marks. The entire section is for 76 marks. Then we have a section B, which is your multi-task questions. Here you will, again, it could be a mixture of few things. You will be given like a question in which you could have some MCQs, or it could be a gap filling question like fill in the blanks, or you have to match something. So it could be taking various forms here. So there will be 6 questions like that, and each question is going to be worth of 4 marks each. Now let's discuss on what should be the approach to the preparation. So step 1, of course, always has to be that we have to complete the entire syllabus, right? There is no cherry picking. You can't decide or say that, okay, I will only study 8 topics, 10 topics, and I'll leave the rest. You have to study the entire syllabus because everything is important, and we can't really say that this will come or this will not come. Anything and anything from anywhere can come in the exam. So it's important that the entire syllabus is completed. And more or less, the syllabus of BT is not too difficult, to be honest. It is something that anyone who has, especially if someone has already done 11th and 12th commerce, they have already, let's say, studied business studies, economics. So for them, it's even little more easier. And even if someone is from the science background, it is not going to be too difficult for them as well, because it is a very basic level subject wherein you're just getting introduced to the world of business and technology. Step two, of course, when we are preparing, has to be always that we need to practice questions, because question practicing is very important. Just reading through the syllabus, going through the sessions will never be enough. One has to take that time out and practice the questions. And that's where step three is also. If you're done with the questions, practice again and again. It does not mean that you have to just do from all the books and do every possible questions that which is there, but practice as much as possible. Most of the books would have similar questions, whether you're following BPP, Kaplan, and we, of course, at FinTram Global have our own revision boot camp, which I've designed, wherein I've taken all the concept based questions, past exam questions, so that you get a comprehensive approach and you get all the questions before you go for your exam. Then step four is that you must do revision, and at least 2 times. Once is, like, I would say, mandatory. One should always do at least once revision, but if you do it 2 times, it will be even great. Once everything is completed, we tend to forget what we have studied, in the first session or something like that. So that's why it's important that we revise and we keep some time for revision. That's why we should book our exam keeping that in mind. All right, then we have the step 5, which is we must watch video question marathon at least twice. Like I said, FinTram has the video question marathon. And when we'll be doing the live online sessions, we have our, we will have sessions wherein we are solving questions. So in each session, we anyway solve questions at the end of each session. But apart from that, we will be going through the question marathon in the live sessions also, wherein we will be solving questions. So it's important that one attends that, solves those questions. Step 6 is, of course, that you should do a mock exam. Giving a mock exam is very important. Students who do not give a mock exam, their chances of clearing the exam, final exam, is less than those students who give the mock exam. So give a mock exam. Your performance evaluation at FinTram is done by the faculty, which is me, for business and technology. And of course, step 7 is for on-demand exams, that you should book your exam and then, of course, finally attend your exam. So because the choice is, given to the students, that you can decide the date. So one should, of course, always pick a date which is suitable to them. Like, there are no other exams if someone is, let's say, in college, so make sure your college exams are not then at that time, so that you can give some amount of time, just dedicate to this paper, and then you can finally attend the exam. Then we will be talking, of course, about that why you should study with me at FinTram Global. Why should you choose us? Because FinTram Global is the gold approved ACCA learning partners. We will be conducting live online interactive sessions. So we are starting our sessions, live interactive sessions batch from January. So, one should register as soon as possible, because we'll be starting off with those live sessions wherein we will be covering the entire syllabus area. We are not going to be leaving any topic behind. We would have a revision boot camp wherein there will be the revision session wherein we'll be revising the topics. And of course, there's your question marathon, like I said, which will have the concept based questions, past exam questions. Then mock exam performance evaluation, like I said, is done by the faculty, which is going to be me, for business and technology, wherein I will be checking the exam, seeing where you went wrong, what areas you could improve on. And of course, if you miss a live session, if you register for our live batches and you miss a live session due to some reason, the recording of that live session will also be provided to the student. Now, in today's session, this is a demo session, so we will be going through a chapter as well. We will be covering just some part of session 1, because it is a big session. And once we, of course, start the classes, we'll again, start with session 1. But in this session, we will be briefly touching upon that chapter as well, so that you can see the teaching style and then decide. I'm also putting out the details here, so you can note these down. If you want to register for those live online classes, which are going to be starting soon in January, you can either call or WhatsApp at this number, or you could visit the FinTram's website, or you can even send any inquiry or any concern question regarding that to this email address. So now we'll just quickly start off with the session, session number 1 for business and technology. And like I said, this session is something that we will be, once when we start off the live classes, we will be doing this in detail. Right now, we'll just briefly touch upon on this session just to understand the teaching style and just to see how, FinTram things are done at FinTram. So let me know if you are able to view this screen of session 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So session 1 is business organizations and their stakeholders, like I had mentioned. So firstly, what exactly is an organization? We will be learning what exactly is an organization, why exactly we need an organization, what are the different types of organization. So what are they? What can be called as an organization? Club, school, company, any charity, any hospital, all of these and many more, of course, can be called as an organization. So what is the main definition that we need to know? That organizations are basically social arrangements. Why social arrangements? Because of course people are coming together, right? In an organization, humans are working, right? So it is a social arrangement for the controlled performance. You are working and your performance is going to be controlled. There will be someone on top of you. Everyone would have a boss who will be overlooking and seeing that, okay, how is my team doing? Are they doing whatever was assigned to them? Are they achieving the goals and everything? And they are doing it for the collective goals of that organization. Now, organization could have any goal, right? Uh, it could be that I'm a profit making organization, so my main aim is going to be profit. So our goal could be for the year that, okay, we have to do 1 million profit this year. Another organization's aim could be a little different. Maybe it's a not-for-profit organization. So their aim could be, okay, we need to provide services, or we need to do some social services, or let's say for any not-for-profit organization, it could be that we need to plant trees this year, a lot of trees, because there's global warming, there's so much problem in the environment. So of course, it could be any goal. It does not always mean that goal is going to be just money or profit. Depending on your organization, the goal could be different. So what exactly is an organization? 3 important things here. They are social arrangement for the controlled performance of those collective goals. Now, why do we need organizations? Now, organizations are basically enabling people. When you have an organization, people are coming together. They are sharing skills and knowledge. If I was not working in an organization, let's say if I was just working as a freelance, I get a work, I do it. But let's say I get stuck somewhere, then I have nobody to rely on to go to. But in an organization, when you get stuck somewhere, you have team members. You can go to them. You can ask them, okay, how this thing is done. You have your boss. You could go to the manager. You can ask them, okay, this is what the client is saying. I don't know what to do. So could you please help me? So there is sharing of skills. There's sharing of knowledge. People come together. They share the knowledge between each other. They share their skills. I could be good at maybe Excel. Someone else could be very good at PowerPoint. So maybe if I have a presentation, I would probably go them and ask for their help. So there is sharing of skills. There's sharing of knowledge. Then of course there's specialization, because each individual will focus on the work that they are getting in their department, right? So if I'm an ACCA, I was working in audit department or accounting department, right? I will not go and work in the marketing department because I don't have specialized skills in that. Probably someone who has done an MBA would go and work in the marketing department. So there is specialization. Those who are, work specialized in a particular field, whether it's finance, whether it's human resources, they will be working on those departments. So an organization enables that people who have those specialist skills, they can work in those particular departments. Then there is pool of resources. That is, each individual pool their resources, whether it is the money or time, in order to achieve a collective goal. So when we have a task that has to be done, I am putting time, maybe sometimes I'm even putting extra time to make sure that work is done, the client is happy. So we are pooling resources. I am putting in my time, someone else is putting in their money, someone else might be putting some other thing. So there is a pool of resources. So that's why we need organization, because in an organization is enabling us to share these skills and knowledge, to specialize, and of course to pool the resources. Any doubts till now?
No, ma'am.
All right, so let's move on then. What are the common characteristics of organization? Right, so these are the common characteristics that more or less you could see in almost every organization. That of course, organizations are preoccupied with performance and meeting or improving their standards. They contain some formal documented systems and procedures. So in an organization, there is going to be a formal procedures for everything. If you want to hire somebody, there is going to be a procedure for it. Probably a manager, let's say from finance department, will contact the human resources, will say that, okay, I need a person for this job. This is the job description. So the HR will then start the work. So there is going to be a formal procedure for everything. The finance manager himself is not going to start posting for the job. He is going to contact the human resources of that company. So there are formal procedures that has to be followed. There are some systems, documented systems and procedures that are there, and that is also always there to controlling what exactly and how exactly things are done. Then different people do different things, or they specialize in one activity. Of course, this is also a characteristics that there are going to be so many people in an organization. Everyone will have some other skill, right? Some skills are probably going to be common. Like in today's world, almost everyone knows computers. Everyone needs to know how to work on a desktop or a laptop. But in that also, then there are going to be specialization. Someone might be an expert in Excel, someone might know Power BI. So there are different things, there are different elements or places where someone might specialize, which would be different from the other person. Then they pursue a variety of objectives and goals. Of course, as an organization, they will not just have one objective or one goal that, okay, this year we'll have to do, let's say, this much profit. There are going to be many objectives. You might have one major objective, but there are going to be sub objectives that as an organization we have to grow. Or you could have an objective that, okay, we need to now diversify, we need to get into more product lines. So depending upon your type of organization, you would have a variety of objectives and a variety of goals. Then most organizations obtain inputs, that is materials, and they process them into outputs. That is basically most of the organization, if especially you're in manufacturing or selling something, you would get the raw materials, you would go through the process and then turn them into output. Whether you're selling clothes or you're selling, let's say, a packet of chips, you are getting the raw material. Potato is a raw material. You will process it, you will do whatever in your factory, and in the end of the day, you will finally have a packet of chips ready, which will be then ready for selling to the outside world. So let's have a quick look at what are the types of organizations. Any doubts till now?
No, ma'am.
All right. So there are mainly, broadly, if we have to classify, there are two types of organization. We have our profit-making organization and not-for-profit organization. As the name suggests, of course, profit-making organization, that is any organization whose ultimate aim or the main aim is profit, and not-for-profit organization whose major aim is, of course, not profit. So under that, then in profit making, there is, of course, sole trader, partnership. Then we have our companies, limited liability companies. In that, there are two types: private limited, public limited. Now, all of these things that I've just read out, everything is covered in the session in detail. Then in your not-for-profit organization, any government department that we have, agencies we have, let's say the police, right? The police is a government department. We don't have police to make profit, right? It is not there to make some sort of a profit. It's not a business per se. It's there to serve the society, to make sure that law and order is in place. The military is there for a different purpose. It is not there to make any profit. So any government departments, agencies, it is there to serve the citizens as such, right? Then we have schools, we have government schools, right, whose aim is of course not to provide make profit, but to provide education to those students who probably can't afford to attend schools or pay fees. Then we have hospitals, various government hospitals are there, charities or any clubs, and all of which aim is not going to be just profit as such. So first, let's see our commercial organization, or also known as your profit making organization. So one by one we'll see. First one, of course, is a sole trader, which is also known as proprietorship. Who exactly is a sole trader? A sole trader is someone who owns the business, and the liability at the end of the day is going to be on him. So that's why it's written here, owned by one and liability on one. So basically, let's say from tomorrow, let's say I start a business. Let's say I'm very good at baking, and I think that I should bake some cakes and start selling them. So I start this business from my home. I do this, and maybe in the beginning I am just starting off, so I don't need any employees. Then let's say start to grow. I have many orders coming in a day or a week, so I probably have hired a delivery boy. This will still be a sole trader business, even though I would have employees. But the main thing is that I am the one who is owning it. The owner is one. I could have 5 employees, 10 employees. It will still remain a sole trader or a proprietorship, because I'm the only owner. I am making the decisions. The employees can directly come, talk to me, discuss with me anything, any problems that they have, anything that they think we should do differently in the business. So a sole trader is a self-employed person who owns and runs their own business as an individual. So a sole trader business does not have any legal identity as such, which is separate from its owner, which means that the business and the owner is considered as one. So which basically means, if tomorrow I have taken, let's say, some loan for this business, and my business has failed, nobody is now buying the cakes, and it has failed, and I'm not able to repay the loan. So the bank can come to me and say that, okay, you sell your personal properties, you sell your house, car, whatever, we don't care, you pay us back. Because here, the sole trader and the business is not seen as a different entity. It is considered to be one. Partnership. Now, partnership is owned by 2 or more people, and here the liability will be, of course, divided between those partners then, as per whatever they have decided and whatever they have mentioned in their partnership deed. So a partnership is a form of business where 2 or more people are sharing ownership, as well as also the responsibility for managing the company and the income or losses of that business that it is generating. Again, here, let's say if I was doing, my friend also suggests that, oh, you bake cakes, I can bake cookies, so let's get together and do it. So then it would become a partnership. All right. Then moving on to limited liability companies. Now, this is owned by shareholders. And here, the liability is, of course, going to be divided as per the percentage of shares which are held in the company. Now, the main point here to remember is that a company has a separate legal identity to its owners, basically from the owners who are the shareholders. So the owner's liability is limited to only the amount that they would have invested in the company. So if we say the company has a separate legal identity, what are we basically saying? That a company is different, and the people who own it, they are viewed as a separate legal entity. So if the company goes bankrupt, the people, the creditors or bank, whoever the company owed money, they can't really go to the shareholders and say, you sell your personal properties and you sell whatever you have like your personal things, because you have to pay us. No, it's the company which has gone bankrupt, and company is a separate legal entity. So that's why the shareholders will only lose probably the amount that they would have invested and nothing else. They will not have any personal liability there. So we will also cover the 2 types of limited liability companies that are there. There, of course, the private limited companies. So a private limited company is basically a business which is held by a small group of people. It is registered for predefined objects and owned by a group of members who are of course called the shareholders. So here private limited companies, they are owned by few shareholders and the shares are not going to be offered to the general public. This is the main thing to remember, because this is the main difference between a private and public company, that in a private limited company the shares are not offered to the general public, and the term that you're supposed to use after the name of a private company is limited. So let's say XYZ Limited. So that would mean that it's a private limited company. Then we have our public limited companies. These are those companies wherein you can, of course, the shares of that company are basically available to the general public. These shares are either listed on any stock exchange, whether it's your Bombay Stock Exchange or New York Stock Exchange or any stock exchange in the world, and the share or stocks are traded publicly. So there are various stock exchanges. So if you are listed on a stock exchange wherein people can buy the shares or stocks of your company freely, they are traded publicly, right? So you would have the option to buy. I could choose to buy 1 share, I could choose to buy 10 shares. So that is up to me. That's on my free will. But of course, I have to pay the value, whatever the company is quoting there. So this, it will be a public limited company, and the term that is used after a public limited company who's owned, it is of course again owned by shareholders, but they are the general public. The term used is PLC. So in that case, in the case of private limited, as we saw, was LTD, but for public limited companies, it is PLC. Any questions or queries till now? Any questions, Rama? So I will move on.
No, ma'am. Everything is clear.
Okay, thank you. So I will move on to not-for-profit organizations. So like I said, not-for-profit organization will not see profitability as their main objective. So profit is not going to be their main objective. It could be anything, maybe social service or providing some services to the citizens. So like I said, you could call the government department and agencies are not-for-profit organizations, right? We have the schools, hospitals, charities, clubs. So all of them, the main object is not to make profit here. Then we have public sector organizations. So public sector is part of your economy that is concerned with providing some government services. And these government services are, of course, controlled by your government organization. So your police, like I had mentioned, military, public transport, any primary education or any healthcare that we have for poor, all of these things, they will be considered as public sector organization because they are there for some reason, because you want to provide some services to your citizens for the betterment of the society. And of course, this is controlled by the government. The government will decide, okay, what is going to be, let's say, the budget for the military, or how the police is going to operate, whether it's center, state, depending on where you are. So that's why they are your public sector organizations. Now, what are the key characteristics for a public sector? First one is accountability, which is of course ultimately to parliament. Then there is funding, public sector, how do they get money? The taxes that the citizens pay, from that, of course, the money is allocated to the sectors, or by making charges or by borrowing. So these are some ways that you could fund yourself as a public sector organization. Then the demand for services. There is a relationship between the price charged for something and demand. In public sector, demand for many services, however, is practically limitless, because many of the things are subsidized or for free. I mean, if I want to go and make a police complaint, I don't really have to pay someone something to register an FIR, right? Then there are limited resources. Despite your potentially huge demand for public services, of course, there are constraints with the government, whether it's budget constraints. So that's why they are not able to put in all the resources that they need to. If you take example of, let's say, the transportation, maybe we do not have enough buses or metros considering the amount of population that we have. That's why it's saying that demand cannot always be met, because there's so much of population, there's a lot of demand. And even though the government has tries and does a lot, we have public transport, but the question of course comes, is it enough? Is it enough to meet that demand? And most of the cases it is not. Then, like the public, we of course have the private sector organizations. Now, public sector, we just saw, controlled by government. The opposite of that will be a private sector, which is going to be controlled by just normal individuals or any normal group. So these are those organizations which are not owned or run by any government or government agencies. They are run by simply just individuals, maybe by me, you, and other people, any individual, or it could be a group. And they can, of course, be profit making, but they could also be not for profit making. Just because it's a private sector organization, it doesn't mean that it's going to be only profit making. It can as well as be a not for profit making. Some examples of this, if I have a business or if I have a club, so all of them will fall under my private sector organization. Then we have our non-government organization, or also known as an NGO, as we would have probably heard in the past about NGOs are there. What is the primary goal of any NGO? Of course, the primary goal is definitely not to make profit, but to provide any sort of a service or for the betterment of society, right? I could open up an NGO for relating to some environment concern. There are NGOs relating to promote some political, social, or any change within the countries that they are operating, right? There are many NGOs who offer food to the poor. There are many NGOs who offer, various amenities to the poor. There are so many NGOs who were active when there was COVID, when there were people who were not able to, get food, had access to food. So there were NGOs helping there. There are NGOs always there promoting the environmental cause when they are working towards that, how we can improve the environment, how we can reduce the pollution, plant more trees. So they are all known as, of course, NGOs. So basically, what's the definition of NGO? It is an independent voluntary association of people who's acting together for some common purpose other than, of course, achieving any government office or making money. Now, some examples, these are some popular NGO names, like we have the Red Cross, there's Doctors Without Borders, Greenpeace, Amnesty International. So these are some common NGOs. Then, cooperative, who
Ma'am,
are, yeah,
to ask something.
yeah.
What is Greenpeace?
So these are the name of NGOs. So, working towards, like we have your Red Cross, which more in the medicine field. Greenpeace is another NGO. So these are just examples of NGOs that they are entities and, working towards a particular goal. That's all. They are just an example. It's not a, term as such of any that ways. Like it's a, like you have your Red Cross, you might have heard. So similar to that, there's another NGO of Greenpeace, there's Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International. So they're working towards various causes, whether it's related to environment or any social cause and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on to cooperatives. What exactly is a cooperative? Now, this is also voluntary association of members, and they are doing this to meet any common, let's say, economic or social or cultural aspiration that they might have, any cultural need that they might have. So they come together, and it is owned and democratically controlled by those members. So few people come together who might have some aspirations, similar aspirations, whether it's social aspirations, cultural aspirations, and they come together and they democratically own that. Now, they are organized solely to meet the needs of those member owners only. And of course, they are going to be sharing those profits. So they have only made it, they had some goals. So they have come together, they have made a cooperative, and that organization, or that they are existing basically to meet whatever the needs of those people are. And of course, they will be sharing whatever profits that they are going to be making. Then what are the various sectors of organization? So we have seen now that there are so many types of organization. You could be a profit making, not for profit making. You could be a public sector and private sector. But at the end of the day, all of these organizations are again going to be in some sector, right? Let's say agriculture sector. So there are companies which are in the agriculture sector, right? Which are either producing goods. Someone, let's say, is producing wheat, or someone is producing rice. So they are going to be in agriculture sector. Someone are, let's say, producing fruits, whether it's your mangoes, bananas, coconuts. So all of that is going to fall in the agriculture sector, whether they are just producing it, or they could be processing it or packaging it for food products. Then there's a mining sector. Any of those organizations could be in a mining sector, wherein they are extracting or processing minerals. Then there is finance. All the banks that we have, whether it's a government bank or a private bank, they are going to be, if it's a bank, it's going to be in the finance sector. So any bank or any other financial institution who make profit from investment and lending money to others, that is going to be under your finance sector. Then we have retailers, now who purchase from wholesalers or manufacturers and sell to consumers. Then we have service, any production of intangible goods and service. So you have a service industry when you are not really selling a product, but a service. So maybe I have a beauty parlor. So therein people come, they get their haircuts or they get the spas. So I'm not really selling a product there, but a experience, a service. Then we have a transportation. Maybe you have a fleet of trucks. So you could be in the transportation structure. There's going to be movement of those goods between the locations. And of course, there are many more sectors which have not been named in this list. It's not an exhaustive list. There are many more, of course, sectors out there, but these are some of the most basic ones. Then what are the distinguishing features of different types of organization? First one is ownership. So basically here we are trying to understand what are the features by which you could distinguish the type of organization. Let's say if you have to distinguish it between private or public sector, how could I distinguish it? Maybe by knowing the ownership, because both of them will have different types of owners. Private sector, as we said, they are going to be having owners who its organizations are owned by individual owners or shareholders. But for a public sector organization, it is going to be controlled either by the government, whether it's your state government, central government. And the cooperatives, like we studied, they are going to be owned by the members, and who of course share the profits. Then the purpose of the organization is also going to be different, right? Business organizations are of course going to exist to make a profit, but public sector is not there to just make a profit. It is there to provide some sort of a benefit to the general public, to the citizens. Then the funding is of course going to be different. For a public sector, the money will be raised from central government, whether you're getting the money from the tax money, or there could also be borrowing. Government could also borrow. There is private sector organization. They of course raise money from their owners. And of course, if it's a charity, how do charities get money? Either government gives them any grant, or donations are given. Maybe general public donate. So many people donate to various charities. So this is how their funding is done. Then the liabilities, of course, also different. So the owners of sole traders or partnerships are liable for any losses that their business make, and owners of companies but are going to enjoy limited liability, because as we saw that companies have a separate legal identity. That's why the owners, they are not going to be bearing all the losses. If the companies go bankrupt, they will probably just lose the money that they had invested. But in case of a sole trader or a partnership, they are going to be liable for any loss the business may, because here there is no separate legal identity, or it's not a separate legal entity. So that's why the liability is different. So that this is a distinguishing features. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we will also quickly touch upon what are the stakeholders. So we have covered the business organization aspect. We'll quickly touch upon what are stakeholders, because we have crossed the one hour limit, but we'll quickly touch upon that as well. So a stakeholder is an individual or group who basically has an interest in what an organization is doing, or it could get affected by what the organization is doing, or they can affect what any organization's actions. So there are three things. So who is a stakeholder? Any individual, or it could be a group, who has some sort of an interest that what this organization is doing, or they could some way affect what that organization does, or they can be affected by whatever the organization does in the future or now. So three categories are there. Broadly, they will be grouped in these three categories. So we have our internal stakeholders. So internal stakeholders, these are those stakeholders who are within the organization itself. So the employees, your management, they are within the organization, of course. So they have, sort of a strong influence on how it's going to be run. And they are internal to the organization. That's why they are internal stakeholders. We have our external stakeholders, which is of course, external to your organization, like the community, government, any pressure group. So they don't have really as such a day-to-day dealing with you. But like I said, and stakeholder could be anyone who affects or can affect it. So government can definitely affect, right, an organization. If I pass a law, your organization could be effective. Pressure groups could, tell, let's say if there's a pressure group and they say that, oh, your organization, you've built up a factory here, you are doing too much of pollution, the people nearby are facing problems. So the pressure group becomes an external stakeholder, because they have now they could affect your organization's action. You probably now have to put in filters so that the pollution is reduced. Then there are connected stakeholders. These are those stakeholders who will have some sort of a dealing with your organizations. So your customers, they buy goods from you, right? So they are your connected stakeholders. Shareholders are connected. Any supplier, finances, banks who are providing, let's say, loan to you, so they are going to be your connected stakeholders. So connected stakeholders either invest in or they have dealings with the firm. So these are some examples that, like I said, suppliers, of course, what will be their expectation? That I should be paid promptly. What will be the customer's expectation? That whatever I'm buying, it should be of a good quality, I should get it at a good price, and all of that. And like I said, external stakeholders, you would not have a direct link, but like I said, they either can influence or be influenced. Like I give the example of a pressure group, like an environmental pressure group. They can definitely influence. And trade unions are there, of course. Then primary and secondary stakeholders. So we have put in 3 categories. From these 3 categories, now we'll put into these 2 categories. Primary stakeholders are those stakeholders who have some sort of contractual relationship with your organization. So that's why only connected and internal stakeholders fall into this category. That is your employees, your directors, your stakeholders, shareholders. So any internal stakeholder or any connected stakeholder will be called your primary stakeholder, because they have a contractual relationship with your organization. But like we saw, that external stakeholders do not really have any direct link with the organization, or they do not have any contractual link with your organization. So that's where external stakeholders are your secondary stakeholders, since they do not have any contractual link, like the general public or the government. So they are your external stakeholders or secondary stakeholders. All right, then we will quickly also cover stakeholder conflict. That is that an organization will have, of course, different stakeholders and all with different needs. And because of that, there are going to be times wherein there's going to be conflict. I could be one stakeholder, there could be another party, another stakeholder. We could have different needs. Our needs could clash. So there's going to be a conflict. Many times there could be a conflict. Some common conflicts, let's say managers versus employees, right? What is the usually conflict here? Of course, employees want more higher salary, but managers want to keep the cost low. Then there's customers versus shareholders. Shareholders want to make money. So for that, they might want to, not worry so much about the quality. They'll be like, okay, make a cheap product so that I can get more money. But on the other hand, what is the customer's need? What is the customer's want? That they want a good product of good quality, basically. Then there is general public versus the shareholders, which is your effect on environment versus profit dividends. Again, your shareholders are going to be just concerned with the profits and dividend, but the general public might be worried about the environment where you're working in. Then there's managers versus shareholders, whose conflict is going to be versus growth versus independence. So managers, probably they want, to grow and they want to work independently, but maybe shareholders want to see exactly what exactly managers are doing, how their money is being utilized. So then there's the Mentor's matrix, which we are not going to be covering now, but we will cover, of course, in the session when we actually do it. So I'll leave that for now, but we will look at a couple of MCQs. So after every session, we do have some MCQs that we do. So let's have a look at, those MCQs. So example 1, which of the following is not a key feature of an organization? Any idea, Rama? Take a guess.
Yes, ma'am. The answer will be D.
Yes, because we have studied in the definition that organizations are there, their social arrangement for controlled performance of collective goals. So the right answer would be D. All right, let's have a look another question. Example 2. Which of the following statements regarding our limited companies is correct? Public limited companies have access to wider pool of finance than partnerships or sole traders. Both public and private limited companies are allowed to sell shares to the public. Companies are always owned by many different investors, and shareholders are liable for any debts that company may incur. So they are asking which of the following statements is correct. Any idea?
Yes, ma'am. First one will be correct.
Yes, first one is correct. That public limited companies do have, of course, a wider pool of finance than your partnership, and of course sole traders. So yes, first one is in fact correct. All right, then we have example 3. YJK is a business which is owned by the workers, and these workers only are sharing profits, and they all have a vote on how this business is going to be running. So exactly what type of a business, or how would you describe YJK? Is it in public sector, private? Is it a not-for-profit, or is it a cooperative? Any guess here?
I think it will be C.
No, it is going to be D, cooperative, and the reason is it's mentioned here that it is owned by the workers, like we had studied, right? Cooperative owned by the members, and those members share the profit. They are only owning the business, so they will have a vote on how the business is run, right? So that's why it is a cooperative and not for profit. All right, then example 4. We'll do this last example. Consider the following statement. Charities would usually be classified as a type of an NGO. Is this statement true or false? Any guesses?
Mm, False.
No, this is true. Charities are NGO. Usually charities are NGOs. What was an NGO? We studied, right? NGO is any organization whose primary goal is not profit. And charities, as we know, charities aim is not usually profit, right? Any charity that you have is for any social cause or betterment, right? So that's why they are saying that charities would usually fall into the category of NGO. So that's why this statement is true, because NGOs are those organizations that do not have profit as their primary objective or primary goal, and of course they are not linked to any government, and most of the charities are going to be falling into this category, because many people open up charities to help particular section of society, right? Their main aim is not definitely profit. So that's why this statement is hence true. And last question is related to Mendelow's matrix, which we have not done. That part is left, so we will leave that question for now. All right, so this was our first session, and like I said, we will be very soon starting off with the live online batches. This is how the sessions are going to be, wherein we'll go through a session, we'll do the questions. If there are any doubts that you have, of course you can ask. So are there any questions, doubts that you have, Rama, with regards to this session or in general?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is how the live sessions are going to be conducted, and we will be starting our batches in January. We'll be having our sessions 3 days a week. So that's how it's going to be done. And in case someone misses a session, the recording will be provided. Apart from that, few sessions will be a recorded session, of course, of my only. And whenever we do a live session, those things will be discussed. That chapter will be still revised, and after every chapter, like we have done session 1, when we come to session 2, session 1 is also revised, and then session 2 starts off, then the questions are done in the end, and all of that is done. This is how it goes in FinTram. Once everything is covered, all the sessions are completed, which has covered all the syllabus areas, what do? We revise. We revise everything once again, and we of course then do the question marathon, wherein we solve so many questions from both section A type of question, section B type of question, past exam questions, so that everyone gets a flavor of the exam. So thank you so much for attending this. I hope this was helpful, and you can get in touch with FinTram Global. You could either visit the website, email, or call or WhatsApp at this number to register for the live online classes, which we are going to be starting from mid of January. So, register as soon as possible for those live online batches. Any questions, any concerns, any query that you have?
No, ma'am, not now.
All right. Thank you so much then for attending, Rama. All the best.